Now, while this is working, let's do a quick commit just to establish a stable baseline. Let's take a look at the changes actually before we go there. Probably the easiest way right now is to rename these files back to C so that we can see the differences clearly. Just not forget to rename them back to C++ after that. So what do we have in this file? We have basically changing from C to C++ with a few additional casts that are now C++ style. Then in here we have the initialization and maybe unused. In here we have the unused, the refactoring, the unused, the simplification over here, making this code beautiful, and another cast for for the uint16t. Okay, header file, we have this for the define, this one. We also have changed from C to C++, from pound defines to constexpr. That's basically all there is in this file. And the makefile, we have a bunch of new and exciting flags. So let's go back. Let's change files back to C++ and do the commit. We'll call it season 1 episode, what is it, E by now? Vibe coding with Copilot. We will add more to this commit later, but for now just commit this to main. Don't push to origins because we're not done with all the changes yet. Because what I wanted to do next was to go and basically go a little bit offline. There is a list of other potentially useful compiler flags that I have figured out while preparing for this video, doing multiple runs here and there. So let me do a sped up version of making these changes, all of them. Kind of want to put a Benny Hill music here. Okay, that's enough changes. Let's see if it still builds after all that, and if it does, and it does. So let's add more changes which were supposed to be in the C++ section, and also the linker flags. Let's see if it still builds. It does not. No include directory / include C++. That doesn't sound right because ARM non-ABI is not set, I suppose. So why is it not set? Because it's supposed to be, it was a copy paste. It was supposed to be, let's see what it's supposed to be. I think it's supposed to be that much. non-BI. Let's see. Much happier. And of course, let's see if our code still runs, because it may be as beautiful as you want, but if it doesn't run, it doesn't run. Reset. Always having trouble resetting this device. There we go. Let's deploy to RAM. And we got our video. Now, there were a whole bunch of flags added. What do they all mean? I don't remember. Many don't know. So let's ask Copilot to put a trailing line comment explaining each compiler and linker flag. Let's do the heavy lifting. Because as much as I can do it myself, obviously Google is your friend and a whole bunch of internet resources, but this is tedious. To go and put a single line comment for each one, what they do, what are they for. But the Copilot, look at that beauty. It is going to do it all for us. I'm liking it. Apply. Look at it go. Tab. Accept. 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 It did not change anything but the comments, which means it should still be buildable. But now at least we can go through the list and figure out what do these flags do, which ones we can turn off, on, change, and generally what all that means. So let me do the update here. Go to history, right click over here, amend commit. Just add this part to this commit. And now let's do some really heavy lifting. Let's go to the place where we process the USB requests, our callback. Was it in frames? Oh, it's over here. USB setup CB. You may notice all this bit masking and bit shifting and whatnot. So in this function, there is a lot of bit manipulation going on. instead have a USB RQT, USB setup structure to encapsulate those fields. Have it unioned with 2xUINT32T incoming values for initialization, for direct initialization. Let's see what it does. Hey, look at that. That's beautiful. That's actually what I was hoping to get. And the memory layout also seems to be matching what I expect. Let's apply, because the memory layout here does make a difference, because that's structure coming in on the wire. So there is this type def union. Well, type def, we can change that type defin from C into C++ regular union without type defs. There are unnamed structs inside. It's not terrible. So let's accept. First of all, let's just blindly accept. What is this? No, this ones I don't want to blindly accept. That looks wrong. Why would it change this into that? No, all delete. This one, I don't agree. However, coming back here, I can ask Copilot to do it for me, but I think some things are really much easier and faster to do manually once I find it. Here, no type defin necessary. Let's build and see if the memory layout was correctly done. Deploy to RAM. Nicely done. So what that means is that now we can just go ahead and start splitting this large function. It has a whole bunch of different things into smaller, more manageable pieces, and we don't need to pass around and reconstruct all the bit fields. We can just push this setup, which is USB request essentially. Let me just Control RR to rename the setup into USB request. I want it to be not entire solution, just the current project. Apply. Nope, not in here, just in here. Apply, build. Pretty sure that should be fine enough. But my point is that now this USB request can be used to pass around as a parameter to subsequent smaller functions. And in fact, let's ask Copilot to do that. Split this function into smaller, more manageable pieces. Let's see what it decides to do. Handle standard request, handle VC request, video control interface. I agree with this. Handle VS request. I totally agree with this split. Let's apply and see what our code looks like after these changes. And while doing that, I did try this new feature, the Copilot agent. Unfortunately, it doesn't behave well with the makefile kind of open folder setup because it cannot do the build. Maybe it will be fixed later. So let me just tab, accept these changes. Let me build unused variable. It doesn't need to be used, then it doesn't need to be used. Not everything needs to be used, but we can see that now we have this smaller, way more manageable functions. Don't need to specify the union keyword here, over here as well, but this is much smaller, much easier to understand, much easier to grasp mentally. And our callback function now looks, hey, it fits on one screen, beautiful. And we clearly see what is going on. If it's standard request, we do the standard request. If it's a USB class request, then we see whether it's the interface VC or interface VS and handle them appropriately, which almost can be switched into switch statement later on if necessary. But what is important to see, of course, is if it still works after this change. And it does work. Let's, reset the device, of course, and let's update our stable snapshot, so to speak. Let's amend the commit, put it here, because the next change I want to do is way trickier. And it has to do with the fact that bit type and bit target are still using the bitmasks. So that it needs to change this structure. Instead of request type, it needs to split it into BM is the bitmap, into bitmap style struct, which is what we're gonna ask it to do. Change into bitmask struct to directly represent its fields instead of doing direct mask manipulation to extract those in code. And in my testing, Copilot failed to do it properly. So let's see if this time it had a better luck of doing this. So there is a bits Well, technically it's only 2 bits for recipient and then there are 3 reserved bits, but it has no way of doing it. If I were to feed it the USB spec, I suppose it would have known that. Layout at least seems appropriate. It may actually work. Let's apply. Let's start accepting. This looks appropriate. Oh, it did reformat. Look at that, to make it nice and pretty. And in here, the target is just a recipient from the request type. A little bit overcomplicated, but I think it's fine. It's right. It doesn't need to use it, so why bother? I agree. And in here, it's again a bit of formatting to bring it up to indentation. First, let's see if it builds. And now let's see if it works. It does not. So whatever change it did, I'm not gonna look too much into that. It failed again, and unfortunately that's been my experience before. It is a little bit more nuanced that it can understand. That's why we were doing these snapshots. So now we can discard these changes, coming back to the previous stable state. And the last thing I wanted to do is to add some logging. So let's go to, oh, I need to turn this on, I suppose. The device was not on. Let's do it again, this time with feelings, of course. There we go. So what I want to do is let's go to this USB request place over here and let's log, it's not here, over here, this USB setup. Doesn't need to be junior. Let's log what it looks like. Log the USB request to UART. Let's see what does it deem useful to be logged into UART. I would imagine all these fields are kind of nice to know about when the request is coming in. Hey, it actually made a separate function. That's appropriate. Doesn't need to say union once again, but once we have it set up, we just say log USB to UART and apply. Looks appropriate. In fact, I probably can make this window smaller now, since we want to be able to see everything on the screen at once, which would be that much, and then this would be over here. This one doesn't need to be that wide anymore. So where are we at? We are here. Tab, I want to accept. Tab. This one I don't want to accept. Again, why does it do that? I don't want to change to put underscores in here. So Alt delete for this one and tab for here. Now let's remove the unnecessary union keywords. Don't know why it keeps putting it there. I will Control RR, rename that into lowercase l, and it doesn't need to say to UART. Login is login. Log USB setup. Control F3 and F3 to next location where not current project, all open documents would be good enough. There we go. This is very redundant. It already says log USB setup, and now if we build and deploy to RAM, we shall see, hopefully, well, if it works, unknown type name USB setup. Aha, code is probably defined later on. Yeah, over here. So we need to move it up. Let's just get it out of here, go back to the beginning of the file and put it somewhere here. Good enough place for it. Build. How did we miss this defines? I don't know. Oh, we probably did not ask for it. Let's just quickly do that too. Replace sound defines with constexpr variables. I know that would have been faster if I did it manually. I just want to, I guess, get closer to my quota. Oh, speaking of quota, you can figure out quota used in here when you Copilot consumptions. That's the one. That should tell us how much have we used for the requests, and code completions we have not used any yet. There was a problem completing your request. Please try again. Let's retry. Interesting. Still a problem. Okay, I'm not gonna bother spending too much time on it. So Alt Shift down and then Control Shift right. We say const expr auto equals. It's good enough. Let's build. That should build. Not yet. Unexpected. Ooh, was it coming from somewhere else? Oh my god, it's already been pound defined in the header file. So why are we even bothering do that? Redefinition basically. It's coming from outside. It's coming from outside. Build, deploy. And this looks weird. Okay, let's take quicker look at what did it try to log. Control F3. So the login request type 0x%02x, is that not supported? I don't know if X notation is supported. Maybe it's not, and that's why it's complaining. Let's just do a quick one. %d. I know it's not gonna look ugly and not exactly what we want. I just want to see if it does something. %d and %d. It's in bootloader mode. Let's deploy to RAM. Also, let's clear. Scroll back. Aha, I suppose 0x was not a supported format. So now we have this hello world. We do have our requests being logged. That's good enough for today. We've seen how this stuff works in general. We may look at it later, but probably not. Let me amend this commit. This will complete. Let's push to origin into the repository. And with that, this is the end of season 1. Next season will be all about USB requests, USB descriptors, how they're being set up, how the firmware should communicate to the host of its capabilities. In general, what is USB, how does it work, and how to make it pretty with C++ compared to C. So thank you for watching, and I really hope to see you at the USB series. Stay tuned.